And then I wanted to talk about that jury selection as well, as there's been some controversy about that, as well as there being no black jury members on this trial. So, can you explain to me the controversy behind that and how important jury selection is to a case? Can it really define its outcome here?
Yeah, jury selection is everything. If you can get the right jurors for who are hopefully going to see the case your way as a prosecutor, you're golden. But don't forget, you need 12 people on that jury who are going to find that you met your burden of proof. As the defense, I only need one person to say, hold on a second, this was a self-defense case, and my client potentially gets an acquittal. So there's the dichotomy in the jury selection. Now, the jury is supposed to reflect the community. It's supposed to be a jury of the defendant's peers. And I think from the defense perspective, they potentially have a get out of jail free card here. And as a prosecutor, as a former prosecutor, I cannot believe the prosecution actually made this mistake to exclude all of the African American jurors, knowing you had an African American defendant, knowing that you had a bunch of people outside the courthouse who feel that they're not, that their community, the African American community, is not going to get a fair trial, I think is a big mistake. You got to remember, as a prosecutor, you're not there just to convict. Your job is to make sure that the defendant gets a fair trial. And I honestly think if there's a conviction here, I think the appellate court is going to take a very hard look at this and potentially reverse this. This is a serious mistake by the prosecution. And jury selection is one of the ways that an appellate court will reverse a conviction. So we'll have to see how this plays out. But if I was a prosecutor, I would never have done this. It's a mistake, and I think this is going to come back and haunt them.
And that you actually took the next question right from me. If we could see an appeal from this because maybe he doesn't feel that he is represented by his peers.
Yeah, I mean, how can he? I mean, he's an African American young man in an African American community, and he has no African American jurors to decide his fate. How can that possibly be fair? Now, to the prosecution's point, I'm sure when the judge said, "Why are you striking this person?" I think what they said was, "We don't want any teachers on the panel," right? And when you do that once, okay, sounds okay. When you do it twice, maybe. But you start doing it 3 times and 4 times, you're like, hold on a second, there's a pattern here. And it's the pattern of striking those African American jurors that I think is going to come back and bite the prosecution, in the proverbial backside. I really do. And I think the appellate court's going to find a problem with this.
And there was I'm reading some of these other articles when it comes to these jury selection and how this was done throughout this case, as well as says this is according to TMZ, saying one potential juror reportedly said, "I don't think I can make a decision about somebody so young. One mistake, one argument, one conflict. You can't say he's a bad person," end quote. Another prospective juror raised eyebrows after admitting, quote, "I don't know if I feel right putting a brother in jail," end quote, when asked about finding a black defendant guilty of murder. This is coming from a report from TMZ. So what are the challenges here when it does come to the prosecution, when it does come to, what are those questions that they're asking potential jurors and making sure that it is a jury selected, that the defendant does feel represented by their peers?
Well, I think from the prosecution's perspective, they're going to ask those questions. How do you feel about the fact that, this young man is African American? How do you feel about the fact he's so young and potentially has his whole life in front of him? If we prove our case, are you going to be able to vote to convict him? And so that's part of the prosecution's, responsibility. But you got to remember, when it comes to jury selection, it's not really jury selection, it's jury elimination. We're not picking jurors, we're just getting rid of the ones that we think aren't going to vote for us. And so that's what's happening. They're just striking these jurors one after the other. And whoever's left, that's your jury. So they're just really trying to make sure to nitpick with these potential jurors that, from a state perspective, are they going to vote for us? Are they going to help us to win the case? And obviously, from the defense perspective, they're going to say, hold on a second, how can you possibly say that you can be fair if nobody on the panel reflects the skin color of our client or even the community for that fact? So, I mean, there's a real problem here.